To start making the monkey ace, I get out all the colors that I'm going to need, and I first make the browns. To start, I make the lighter brown that goes onto the face, and then after that, I make the darker brown that goes onto the head. Right now, I'm making the actual body and the monkey itself. But since most of the monkey ace is inside of an airplane, I'm only going to be making the body and the head. Now that I have my face color and rest of the body color, I split the darker brown into two, and I darken it up a little more in order to make the accessories for these monkey. And now that I have all of my main colors, I take a chunk out of the darker brown, and that will be my body. Now that I have my body, I can start working on the head. The much more detailed part, because most of the body just gets covered by a plane. To make the head, I just make a sphere and then put a little indent onto the rest of the head so that the eyes and mouth have something to actually indent to once I add on the face. Right here, I am making the actual eyes and the teeth of the smile, because this monkey has a smile, which are going to get baked so that I can press them into the head, or I can press them into the face specifically without them being able to lose their shape. I also make an off-white ear in order to add the little fuzz around the top of the monkey ace's jacket. Right here you can see I'm messing up the worm that I have here in order to make it look more like fuzz. This gets wrapped around the neck, and then this part gets, baked. But I also add a little strip down the front as some kind of a zipper. Right here, I also make a red for some details on the plane, but for right now, it's a scarf. This scarf doesn't get added until later, but right now it is just a long, flat triangle that gets curled up a little to make it look a little wavy. This ended up being the last thing that got added, so don't mind it here at the beginning of the video. You will not be seeing that again for a very long time. So now I get the lighter brown and I put it into the hole that is made for the face. This color gets pushed in and blended into the front of the face until it looks like it's actually a part of the face. And then I get a triangle with two ends on the side that is flat, and I put it to the forehead. This is to make it look more accurate, and also to raise the non-face above where the actual face is. After that, I get a worm and I wrap it around the rest of the face to make sure that all of the face is below the rest of the head. Once all of these worms are on there and blended in, it is on to the eyes and the mouth. Since Bloons characters don't really have noses, you don't really have to worry about noses. So right now, I just push in the eyes and the mouth that I baked earlier into the head, and that's basically it. Except for the eyes, they require a bit more detail. Once the mouth gets pushed in, I start to work on the eyes a bit more. First, I make a very dark brown for the actual eyes and eyebrows themselves, and then I make the eyes. To make the eyes, I roll up 2 small dots of brown clay, and I cut them into little Pac-Mans. Little Pac-Mans are just circles that have triangles cut out of the middle. These happen for both of the eyes, and then once the eyes are made, I just place them onto the head in the same direction. Once the eyes get on there, it's time to start work on the eyebrows. The eyebrows are like the eyes, but more simple. They're just dark brown rectangles that go right above the eyes in whatever position or pose or emotion you want your character to express. And now that I have all of that done, it's time to make the Monkey Ace's hat by first flattening some of the slightly darker brown clay and putting it onto the top of the head in a hat-like position. I place the hat where I want all of it to go, and you can see there's a little bit extra on the back. I pull this off and blend the two gaps together, and then with this extra clay, I put it on an area that I thought was a little bit too small or thin or just didn't look right in order to bulk it up. This gets smoothed flat, and then I get 2 balls of the same clay, and I stick it on where the ears would go. These 2 balls are not really balls, more of discs. Just flattened spheres that get flattened and then placed onto the rest of the head. I make sure to add a little bit of bevel into the edges. I think that's what you would call it. And with that, there's only one more thing to do with the head, and that's add the indents into the hat. Of course, those of you who actually know what I'm making would know that this is not the last step. And also those of you who are paying attention would know that this is not the last step because I have to add on the scarf. So now I'm going to combine some greens together in order to start working on the plane. The plane has 2 colors of greens, but it's not too noticeable in the actual pictures, but it is there, so I do have to make it. There's a lighter green and a darker green. So I made a lighter green and a darker green. The plane body itself is made out of this darker green, so I'm going to need a little bit more of it because more of it is used. Oh, it's raining. It is currently raining. That's nice. Alright, back on track. I roll up a ball of the darker green clay to use as the body of the plane. This gets wrapped around the body of the monkey itself and flattened so that it doesn't look like there are any obvious gaps or seams. And then I add a little bit to the back because there was nothing back there and I needed stuff back there. But there was stuff on the front, so I didn't need to add anything there. Now I get the lighter green clay and turn it into 3 small-ish triangles that are going to be the fins on the back of the plane. These are 3 small ones because if they were large, they'd cover the entire back, and that is not good. These 3 get placed all the way on the back of the plane, and all with the thicker side on the back. Right now, I make the blue that is used on most of the plane. There is, well, not on most, but it's the second largest color. There's a chunk of it on the very front of the plane that helps to give it a round end, and it is a part of the sign on the plane, at least for the 000 monkeys. Right there, I fixed up the fin to make it correct. Now that I have this plane done-ish, I start working on the flat pieces. I don't know what they're called, and I'm too lazy to look it up, so comment down below if you know what they're called. One of these is made out of the lighter green, and one of them is made out of the darker green. The darker green goes on the bottom, and the lighter green goes on the top. But it could just simply be, if you want to make it a more complicated design than what I'm doing right here, you could have it be a layer of light green on the top and a layer of dark green on the bottom, which would be cool. Now, if you want to do this yourself for some weird reason, I would suggest baking those flat sheets before actually attaching them so that they stay flat. Also, you might want to add some structure to those yellow pieces. Oh yeah, I make some yellow pieces with a little bit of yellow and orange, and then I add them as poles to give some support to those flattened pieces that have 2 ridges in the center separating off around the end of the actual ship itself. The helicopter, the plane. Now I start to make those designs. I get 2 spheres of blue clay and I flatten them very thinly. These need to be very thin to make them look not like they're poking out, because this is just a design. After that, I get some red clay that is the same color as the scarf, and I put it into smaller circles inside of the blue. Now I get some dark gray, and I make the, I'm blanking on the word. I'm gonna go look it up. It's called a propeller. I'm an idiot. So now that I'm working on the propeller, it has a rounded triangle on the front, and then two rectangles with slightly longer outside edges than inside edges. And that gets placed right on the front with one of the propellers slightly above the other propeller, which is a little bit lower. Now, I add the scarf, and I give it some support on the back of the plane. Now, the last step is to make this man's goggles. To start, I get a strip of dark brown clay and I wrap it all the way around the head, and then I make some worms of the yellowish orange that I made for the tubes on the inside of the plane, and I get some light blue, and I put those into flattened squares. Then those flattened squares gets the yellow wrapped around them, and then placed onto the band of dark brown clay where they would go, like above the eyes. Once those two are on there, this project is finally completed. Subscribe and bake.